They've killed over 100 Palestinians since the ceasefire was announced.
In 2018, tens of thousands of people marching peacefully, they were gunned down by Israeli snipers.
Israel's eyes remain laser focused on the need to ethnically cleanse Gaza and empty it of Palestinians. They want to finish the job.
Today has been the day of Piers Morgan for my channel, it seems, as we have our third Piers Morgan panel to hop into, but they've been covering a wide range of topics. We haven't doubled up on any topics, and very spirited guests as well, so I think it works out. This one is over the Israel-Gaza conflict, the problems with the ceasefire, with Rabbi Shmuley and pro-Palestinian Omar Badar, so smash that like button, as always. Helps our channel grow a bunch, and let's get right into the video.
Israel has been violating the ceasefire over and over again. They've killed over 100 Palestinians since the ceasefire was announced. They have prevented the entry of adequate humanitarian aid, as was stipulated in the terms of the ceasefire agreement. And they're just looking for any way possible to try to fall short on their obligations to trigger some kind of response. And it's directly in response to the fact that the entire world now seems to be moving away from Israel's ethnic cleansing plan for Gaza that Trump has endorsed. You've had this Arab proposal that has come together about rebuilding Gaza, endorsed by many European nations, but Israel's eyes remain laser focused on the need to ethnically cleanse Gaza and empty it of Palestinians. They want to finish the job of this genocide, and right now I think this is why they're pushing for these provocations.
Israel has been breaking the ceasefire since it was announced pretty much, which in Western media hasn't been getting any coverage. Wonder why. Yet when Hamas holds a hostage as a response to this, the Western media jumps on it and how Hamas is breaking the deal because, as Omar lays out, for Israel, it's about exactly this. It's creating a response from Hamas and then using that response to justify even more slaughter. This is what they did with October the 7th, and it created the playbook where October the 7th obviously wasn't directly prompted, but prompted in the way that you could expect a slave to inherently revolt when you hold him captive. And they've used that to even a year later justify now over 45,000 dead, 70% of Gaza destroyed, and the long list of other turmoil and destruction, PTSD, disease, whatever that has been brought upon the Palestinians during this genocide.
The reason why Hamas turned to armed resistance against Israel on October 7th is because they tried all other means. When Palestinians launched the Great March of Return in 2018, tens of thousands of people marching peacefully, they were gunned down by Israeli snipers. When Hamas leaders accepted the Arab League peace proposal of a two-state solution, accepting just 22% of Palestine, their historic homeland, Israel said they wouldn't even discuss it. So that answers the question of why Hamas has turned to armed resistance, because when they've tried to pursue the diplomatic path, Israel has ignored them. And that's the fundamental problem here. Rabbi Shmuley mentioned countries in the region that don't have electricity, whereas the other whereas other countries thrive. Well, all those countries that Rabbi Shmuley mentioned, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, they share another thing in common with the Palestinians. They've been relentlessly attacked by U.S.-Israeli aggression for years. The Iraq War, for example. Syria, Israel's stolen the Golan Heights, is currently stealing more territory today. Lebanon, Israel invades in 1982, kills tens of thousands of people, occupied it for many years.
This is perfectly laid out, and not even just Hamas. If you zoom out, Palestinians and even Arab countries as a whole have relentlessly tried diplomacy with Israel. The Arab peace initiatives, you can Google them yourself, has been proposed by the Arab League 4 or 5 different times. The first being in 2002, where 22 Arab nations agreed to help rebuild Gaza, normalize talks between Israel and these Arab countries, where all Israel had to do was withdraw all forces from occupied territories. Israel rejected that claim. As he mentions, it's not just with Palestine, it's with Syria, with Lebanon, etc. Israel just wants control of the region. That's it. It wants to expel the Arab population out so it can create this kind of ethno-state for Jews, and it'll keep its boot on the neck of any Arabs that remain in pursuit of this goal. It's insane that America would not only allow this to happen, but enable and back it. Like, for instance, if this was an Arab country doing it to surrounding Jewish countries, we would never consider that country our ally. So why are we now?
Rabbi Shmuley knows extremely well that the reason why there is no electricity in Gaza is because Israel bombs the infrastructure in Gaza and then puts Gaza under siege and does not allow Palestinians to rebuild their own power plants. They've created a situation of dependence where Gaza cannot survive on its own economically. It has to depend on Israel, and that is by design because Israel wants to be able to shut off the electricity at any point. Rabbi Shmuley knows this, but he tries to play on the uninformed audiences. He takes them for fools and hopes that they won't be able to see through the idiocy that he's actually demonstrating right now.
So now I'm an idiot.
Anybody with a functioning
idiot. Come on, any
brain
other insults?
will understand
Have
very
you got a
well
thesaurus
that
in
the
front of you?
reason why Gaza is not free is because Israel prevents it.
This line of argumentation is always weird to me too, because prior to 1967, Palestine didn't rely on Israel. It was in the hands of Arab countries, and it's never really had a fair shake at sovereignty to ever say that it was, it failed on its own or has to rely on Israel or whatever. But this kind of forced reliance is a similar playbook that oppressors run in America, where through systemic racism, Black people have been predisposed to relying more on government aid, where then those who don't deal with systemic racism will try and use this as like a way to disparage Black people when it's hardly a choice. It's in the same way that a Black kid who was born into poverty because his great-grandparents were slaves, his grandparents were segregated, his parents dealt with Jim Crow, and then he himself, was discriminated on applications because the neighborhood he lists on them is known as like the ghetto or a bad area. There's no quality schools near him, and public transit won't take him outside of the district. So he doesn't really have a choice, right? In that, if anything, he has a requirement to work twice as hard just to prevent this from being inevitable. It's the same in that Palestinians born into abject poverty, with their infrastructure constantly being bombed and destroyed, funding just not happening, aid even being withheld, their family dying faster than iPhone batteries, you're clearly not choosing to remain in this situation, and it's extremely privileged to even claim as such.